How do you effectively analyze a quote? The first thing is you want to get the technique. So label it with a technique. If you can't see a technique on your quotes, or if you have in your draft essays sections where you literally just say the quote or you just say the phrase and you don't actually label it with a technical language feature, then don't use it. Or you need to get help or do some research to find out what language feature applies. And then you need to have a verb after it. So you say the metaphor in the quote reveals, suggests, conveys, demonstrates. For everyone listening, don't use the word shows or displays in your essay. So you can go through all of your drafts now and do a Control F, Command F, or whatever it is, and search up the words show and display and make sure that you haven't used those in any of your essays. Change them for better words like conveys, suggests, demonstrates. A really good acronym that you guys can use if you want different verbs to use instead of the word shows is spiced. If you guys use spiced, you can remember this: S for suggests, P for portrays, I for illustrates, C for conveys, E for emphasizes, and D for demonstrates or depicts. So the metaphor in the quote reveals or demonstrates or illustrates, and then you need to make a point. Now, how do you effectively analyze the quote from there? You need to make sure you've said something specifically about that quote without merely translating it. So a lot of people just translate the quote. Say it's like you're doing a Shakespeare or something. You'll translate it, but you won't actually extrapolate from it. You won't actually tell me the broader meaning behind it. Make sure that you are drawing upon a specific part of the quote, and I would just focus on one of the key terms in the quote that you're using, and then think about what that relates to, okay? What is that about? What does that relate to? And then say something specific in that way about it, okay? So, I mean, it's very hard to do without an example. NJ. So how do you create a quick conceptual topic sentence? Well, I don't like doing anything quickly, but it is Wednesday night and you probably have trials on Monday. So I understand the urgency. I like thinking about these things, of course, but there are ways to do it. I think I would start with the phrase. I'm going to use Shakespeare as an example because I don't know which one you're doing. Shakespeare explores, and now I need to write a concept. I need to make sure that I don't just write a theme or like a word like that. I don't just say Shakespeare explores power. I need to say something about the complexity of it. So I like starting with something like Shakespeare explores the ability for, or the capacity for, or the potential for. So if you use one of those three phrases, that's going to get you off to the right start. Shakespeare explores the potential for power to corrupt individuals as they seek to manipulate the masses in order to preserve control, right? Just made that up off the top of my head. It would depend on what you're writing about. But my point is, if you use those phrases about the author exploring something or challenging something or exposing something, you need to mix up that language, but you say the potential for, the capacity for, then you can actually elaborate on it after. That's allowing you to be more specific. I don't know how to write with eloquence and sophistication. Like, do you have any tips or advice on how to phrase my ideas so it can be well written? Well, yes, I do. I'll give you a few quick pointers, okay? Because again, it's hard without examples. So if I have examples, I can help you. But quick tips on how to improve your sophistication. Step one is avoid listing things. So go through your writing and see where you've just kind of listed lots of different key terms and ideas on top of each other, all right? Instead of doing that, just say one key idea per sentence. So instead of saying Shakespeare explores power and corruption and manipulation, forget about all of that. Just say one thing about one of those words. So Shakespeare explores power as a corruptible, etc. Or Shakespeare explores the ability for power to corrupt due to. So we just want to say one meaningful thing, one specific thing about one key word, but be specific about it. You don't want to say a lot. You don't want to say a lot of key terms having not said anything specific about each of them. Okay, so it's better to say a lot about one thing than a little about a lot of things. So that's a key tip for improving the sophistication of your writing. Go back through your sentences and make sure you're never listing themes, especially in your introduction. You don't say, oh, it explores power and love and all these other things. Don't list any of that. Just tell me one thing about one of those things. Or you can tell me how two of those things relate to each other. Like, how does love relate to power or something, right? You need to actually talk about the relationship. Don't say the text explores love and power. You need to say the text explores the power for, or rather, we could say the ability for power to corrupt love between individuals. So it's now talking about how power can corrupt love between different people. So that's a more sophisticated idea than just listing key terms. So I think if you can just remove listing and just focus on saying one important thing about one term each time you're making a point, then the sophistication is going to go up. Another way to improve your eloquence or sophistication is going to be to shorten your sentences. So the more commas you have in a sentence, the clunkier it tends to become. So try and focus on just having a maximum of one, maybe two commas in a sentence, and then move to the next sentence. Having a nice, clean, short sentence that's concise and to the point, and you're just making that one point, is going to be far more sophisticated. Okay. So there are a couple of key points that should help you hopefully tidy up your writing a little bit. How to shorten essays to be within the 32 to 35 minute time period. I have a lot of stuff I want to cut. I don't want to cut, and that's always the reality, isn't it? You find out, I need to actually cut things down. My essay is 40 minutes. I need to get it down to like 32 to 35. Well, I don't want to cut any of this. I love this stuff, right? Well, what you need to do is you need to go through it, and you do need to just be brutal with the cutouts and say, okay, from most important to least important in this terms of each paragraph, let's order those things. So make an order of the importance of each point that you're making, okay? And think, can I just eliminate one of those points? Can I just get rid of one full sentence of analysis and just keep the other ones there? Now, in a typical body paragraph, for instance, I would want to have at least 3 pieces of analysis, right? So if I've got 3 pieces of analysis plus another one, so I've got 4 and my essay is too long, then I'm going to have to remove one of those. Okay. So depending on how fast you are, and if you're struggling to get it down to 35 minutes or less, go through your body paragraphs and see where you have more than 3 pieces of analysis, and make sure those 3 pieces of analysis are expressed as concisely as possible. And whatever the least important sentence of analysis is there, cut that out straight away. Okay. The other thing I would do is make sure that you are expressing each of your points in as fewer words as possible. So I would do this last. The first thing I would do is go through and just see if you can remove any full sentences, because obviously that's going to be way easier for you to do the cut down than just digging through each sentence and looking for little cuts and ways of making it shorter. So when you're first doing a cut down for an essay, and this is a really important point, make sure you're first of all looking for big sentences that you can just take out straight away. Look at your introduction. Maybe it doesn't need to be 180 words, right? Maybe you get your intro down to like 130 words. Okay, so maybe straight away there's 1 or 2 sentences in your intro that can just be cut out, and you can make 3 or 4 solid sentences, or conceptual sentences in that intro. Get rid of everything else. Go to your conclusion. I would actually look to your conclusion straight away. And if you're finding that it's really hard to cut out things, you obviously want to cut out the least important things first. And the least important paragraph is your conclusion. So don't start with your introduction when you're cutting down. Don't even start with your body paragraphs, especially your first body paragraph, because that's the first body paragraph that the marker will read. So it sets an impression. I look at the conclusion and I think, can I just say my conclusion in one sentence? If you're really struggling, can I just say it in one sentence? Maybe that makes my conclusion like 30 to 40 words. Great. That's it. I've got my one sentence there. Maybe that helps you cut out 50 words already. Then I look at my last body paragraph. And the first sentence that I would look to cut is the link sentence. So after cutting down the conclusion, I look to cut out the link sentence. And then I look within that third paragraph and I say, okay, what are my 3 points of analysis? What are my 3 sentences of analysis? If there's a fourth one, cut that out as well. Then go up to your second body, and maybe you can cut out the second body paragraph link sentence as well. So in order of priority there, the least important thing is the conclusion. So we shorten that. The next least important thing are the link sentences, but I would start at body 3, then to body 2, then maybe to body 1. But again, I like making a really good impression in my introduction and first body. So I'm very careful to eliminate anything out of those when I'm cutting down. But if I find that I've cut out those link sentences and I've shortened my conclusion and I'm still too long, I'll then look to see, as I said, if I can cut down the introduction by maybe a sentence or 2. But 130 to 150 words is a solid number because your intro is so important. It's the most important paragraph. It's the first thing that the marker reads. It's the biggest indication of whether you're answering the question or not. So 3 to 4 sentences. Personally, I always aim for 4 sentences in my introduction, but I'll try and make that as concise as possible, and I make sure that I use the key terms all of throughout all of those sentences.